Hey there, viewers. A body cam clip just leaked, showing armed feds moving through what looks like a school hallway under Beyonce's mansion. What they've found underground? The internet is calling it a rescue, but others say it was a summoning. Chapter 1. The body cam that shouldn't exist. I didn't even know what I was looking at first. The clip was grainy and shaky, like one of those videos that shows up on your timeline and disappears 5 minutes later. No caption, just a weird tag, #BelAirRescue. It was 2 a.m. I was lying on my stomach, scrolling in bed like always, half asleep, just trying to numb my brain before I passed out. And then this thing pops up, a 39-second body cam recording. Looked like something out of a cop training video at first. But then I realized what I was really looking at. The walls were too clean, too white. The lighting didn't match anything I'd seen in a basement or bunker or even a hospital. It was sterile, empty, like a school hallway with no lockers and no doors. And the men walking down it, 6 of them, maybe 7, were wearing federal marshal jackets. Their shoulders bumped as they moved in a single line, guns up, muttering to each other through mics. I was about to scroll past, honestly, but then something moved in the corner. Right behind one of the walls, this sort of slurry concrete barrier that looked unfinished, something darted past. A small figure, not full grown, you couldn't make out a face or anything, but it was the height, the way it ran, like a kid. And that's when one of the marshals said it. Who the hell built a school under here? Clear as day, voice caught on the mic, like he wasn't even talking to the others, like it just slipped out of his mouth. I didn't blink for the rest of the video. I watched them move closer to the end of the hall. You could tell they didn't know what they were walking into. One of them raised his flashlight. There was a door. Not a metal one, not locked or bolted. A wooden door like you'd find in a classroom or maybe an office, and it was slightly open. They stepped through one by one. Then, right at the 37-second mark, there was this sudden burst of light from the left side of the screen. Not gunfire, not an explosion. More like an arc flash, like someone had just hit a live wire. The screen jerked. One of them shouted, "Back up!" That's electric. Then the video cut. No fade, no glitch, just black. It felt fake, like one of those creepy pasta videos people edit to mess with you. But something about the way it was shot, the voices, the angles, this wasn't faked. It wasn't polished enough to be fake. And that #BelAirRescue, that's what made me look it up. The post was gone within 10 minutes. But I'd already screen recorded it. That was the start of it. The next morning, I checked every news site I could think of. Nothing. Not one headline. No breaking banner, no live coverage, nothing. I even searched the local LA news stations. No mention of anything unusual in Bel Air that night. It was like the video didn't exist. But I remembered the badge on one of their vests. You could barely see it in the frame, but it said United States Marshals Special Operations Group. I Googled them. Real unit. They only get called in for federal raids, hostage extractions, or high-risk rescues. You don't just see them patrolling neighborhoods. They don't wear cameras unless it's an internal sweep. So what were they doing under someone's house in Bel Air? I didn't tell anyone about the video at first. Not even my cousin Lauren, who I usually tell everything to. I guess I was scared it would make me sound crazy. But later that afternoon, I came across something that made my stomach flip. A community blog. Some retired teacher who posts about neighborhood events, bake sales, weird noises, that sort of thing. Her name was Carol, but everyone in the comments called her Mrs. C. She had a post from 2 days before the video dropped. It said, "Late night noise at 3:27 IEM. Sounded like children playing. Thought I was losing my mind. Anyone else hear this?" The comments under it were mostly people laughing or saying it was probably coyotes or a TV left on. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. She said it sounded like recess, kids yelling, screaming, laughing. At 3 in the morning, in Bel Air, a place where most homes sit behind iron gates and thick hedges, a place where nobody walks at night unless you're walking your Pomeranian with security detail. I kept digging. That night I ended up on an Amber Alert database. Don't ask me why. I guess I just wanted to see if anything could match that little shadow in the video. I searched by date, then by area, then narrowed it to a 50-mile radius around Bel Air. And there was 2 alerts, both issued within a week of the night that video dropped. One for a boy named Elijah, age 9, last seen in Compton. The other for a girl named Aria, age 11, last seen in West Hollywood. Both cases listed as missing, presumed abducted. No new leads, no public suspects, just vanished. And the height listed for both of them, 4 feet 8, 4 feet 9. About the height of the shadow I saw dart behind the wall. I know what you're thinking. Kids go missing every day. The city's big and bad things happen. But if you'd seen the way that kid moved in the video, the urgency, the fear, it wasn't a kid who wandered off. It was someone running from something toward something, I don't know, but that wasn't aimless. After that, I stopped sleeping, right? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that flash of light at the end of the hallway, the moment everything cut out. And I kept hearing the marshal's voice in my head. That line, "Who builds a school under a house?" It wasn't even the words that stuck with me. It was the way he said it, like he didn't believe it either, like he was trying to convince himself he wasn't seeing what he was seeing. Over the next few days, more pieces started surfacing, not on mainstream sites, but in the corners of the internet. The ones people call fake until they turn out not to be. One post said emergency vans were spotted near North Bel Air Road on the night of the leak. Someone else uploaded a blurry screenshot from a traffic cam that showed 3 black SUVs and an unmarked ambulance parked outside a known celebrity compound. I recognized the front gate. It was the same one from an Architectural Digest tour Beyonce did in 2020. Still no official news, still no names, but the energy online was shifting. People started asking why the FBI wouldn't comment. One journalist tweeted that they'd reached out for a statement and were told, quote, "We cannot confirm or deny an ongoing federal assist operation," end quote, which isn't the same as a no. LAPD logs listed a joint operation conducted on private land in the Bel Air area. No further details. And the only thing we know about the land? It's zoned residential, but it has commercial-grade power lines running to it, like you'd need if you were running underground equipment. The more I read, the worse the feeling in my gut got, because I started to wonder, what if this wasn't an accident? What if that clip wasn't supposed to leak at all? And what if whoever dropped it wanted us to see just the first layer? That 39-second video, that flicker of light, that scream. That was just level 1, chapter 2, beneath the $88 million castle. I didn't want to believe that anything serious could be happening under that house. Not really. Even after watching the video, even after seeing that child's shadow, I told myself maybe there was another explanation. Maybe it was a training drill. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was something else. But that only lasted until I started looking into the house itself. It's a castle, really. Not the kind with turrets or stone walls, but the kind only someone like Beyonce could live in. 30,000 square feet, perched right up on the ridge of Bel Air. You can't even see the main structure from the road unless you're in a helicopter. The whole thing sits behind private hedges and reinforced gates, with multiple driveways that curve and double back like they're trying to confuse you on purpose. I remembered seeing a tour video years ago. It was one of those real estate showcases before Beyonce and Jay-Z even moved in. Some channel like Architectural Digest or South China Morning Post. The realtor's voice was echoing in my head. A modern fortress with art gallery luxury and military-grade privacy. I started digging into building records. Public ones, stuff you can find if you know where to look. And sure enough, there it was, in the 2017 permit filings with Los Angeles County. A 15-car underground auto gallery, hydraulic floor plates, automated retrieval system, a freight elevator in the central courtyard, separate from the main house, listed as going 3 stories down. 3. Now, a lot of rich people in Los Angeles have underground garages. It's not that strange on paper. But 3 stories? That's a deep drop. Especially in a hill zone like Bel Air, where most people fight to get a pool built, let alone a private elevator that disappears beneath your lawn. The permit file didn't list what was down there. Just structural notes, slurry walls, reinforced steel beams, seismic insulation, nothing more. But that's when I found something even stranger. A post from a guy who claimed he worked on the property during the build, said he'd been a subcontractor brought in during the final phase just to install lighting in what he called service shafts. The post was from 6 months ago. It was buried deep in a thread on r/construction under a title like Craziest Project You've Ever Worked On. Here's what he wrote. The weird part was they gave us maps, but only for levels 1 and 2. Everything past B3 was verbally directed, and even then, only by one guy. We asked what the shafts were for. He said emergency egress, but I swear those walls were way too wide, like you could fit a gurney through them sideways. And the elevator didn't stop there. It paused, like it was waiting for something we weren't cleared for. That post kept me up for a week. I tried to reach out to him, left a comment, messaged his profile, nothing. His account hadn't been active since the day after he made the post. When I checked again 2 days later, it was deleted entirely. No trace. I started to think about the tunnel again. The way the marshals looked nervous in that hallway. That school-like tile. That unfinished wall the child ran behind. And I thought, what if that was one of the service shafts? Los Angeles has this rule. If you live in a hillside zone, especially one prone to mudslides, you're allowed to build debris flow drains under your property. They're supposed to help water and loose soil move downhill during storms. Rich people use the rule to carve out entire access tunnels, legal ones. All they have to do is label them as part of the emergency infrastructure. But once the shell is built, no one checks what you put down there. You can wire power, run fiber optics, reinforce walls, add lighting, cameras, pressure sensors. You could build an entire underground structure and no one would question it, so long as you stamped the right words on the permit. And if you're worth over $100 million, you can make those words appear exactly how you want. Between 2022 and 2024, satellite images of the property started to shift. I found an archive site that lets you scroll through historical captures from commercial satellites. It's not perfect, and it's blurry as hell, but you can still make out the changes. New concrete slabs appeared just downhill from the main estate, perfectly rectangular, almost like vent stacks. No visible purpose, no garden plan, no new construction visible from above, just pale gray squares set like checkpoints along a slope. 30 meters down slope, well outside the footprint of the original house. And none of those vents appear on the original planning map. They're not registered as part of any known drain, garage, pool, or utility space, which means they're either part of a structure no one has declared, or they're hiding something. And then I started hearing stories from the people who live nearby, not online, real people. My cousin's friend Lauren does landscaping for a guy 2 houses over. She's been up there dozens of times, trimming trees and replacing turf. She told me that back in March, They had to stop work twice because of night concrete trucks at 3 in the morning. The trucks would idle at the base of the private driveway, then back up out of sight. No lights, no logos, just that heavy smell of diesel and fresh cement. And the next morning, no sign anything had been poured. Another neighbor said she saw forklifts moving crates into a side gate, even though the main property was on vacation in Europe. Said the crates were wooden, about the size of large fridges, but they were marked with flame warnings, stuff you'd normally use for industrial materials. And one more guy, someone who runs drone tours over celebrity houses, claimed his drone signal was scrambled when it passed over the property. Not jammed, not cut, just scrambled. Like something down there was reflecting his signal back out in weird patterns. When he tried to retrieve the footage, the file was corrupted. That's when I started thinking about what was under the pool. In that house tour video from years ago, there was a slow shot of the courtyard pool, glass tiles shimmering under perfect sunlight. I remembered how the realtor talked about it. This pool is directly above our climate-controlled auto gallery, he said. A perfect blend of form and function. But what if it was more than that? I started to imagine what it looked like beneath that perfect blue surface. Not just the cars, not just the walls, but below even that. So I downloaded a 3D modeling app. I know that sounds dumb, but it lets you layer architectural features over terrain. I mapped the known levels, garage, elevator, support structures, and then I added depth based on the supposed drop of the freight shaft. Then I started tracing the vent stacks downhill. What I got wasn't a garage. It was a honeycomb, a layered system of corridors and compartments, all positioned in a slope, all hidden behind the public plan. And right under the deepest part, a chamber, square, empty, sealed on all sides. The modeling app can't confirm what's real, but the lines matched the post from that contractor, the one who said the shaft kept going, the one who said the elevator didn't stop. It paused, like it was waiting. One last thing. A screenshot started floating around Reddit about 2 weeks after that, supposedly from a whistleblower who worked on the elevator programming. It looked like a system prompt, the kind you see on touchscreen panels in freight elevators. It read, Level B3 access granted. Manual code entry required for B4. Please confirm keypad override. The image was low res, could have been faked, but if it wasn't, that means there's a fourth level, a level no one wants to admit exists. And if it does, what's down there? Chapter 3. The fire the ADF still won't explain. The first time I saw the pictures of the fire, I didn't even connect it to Beyonce. It was just one of those local stories that comes up when you're scrolling late at night. Blaze damages historic home in New Orleans Garden District. The photos were dramatic. Flames rolling out of high-arched windows, smoke curling above the roofline like a storm cloud trying to escape. But it didn't look unusual. Not really. Old houses catch fire all the time. But then I read the address. 15 Harmony Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. That house had been tied to Beyonce through shell companies for years. There were articles from back in 2015 when she'd first acquired it through Sugarcane Park LLC, one of those quiet corporate names celebrities use to hide purchases. It had once been a church, then an art gallery, then a private recording retreat, and now it was just a burned-out shell. The fire started around 6:24 p.m. on July 22, 2021. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but it took over 2 hours to bring the flames under control. What confused investigators wasn't just the intensity, it was the cause. They found accelerant canisters inside the house, multiple, and more than that, they found books stuffed inside an oven, cookbooks, journals, even a music theory manual. Someone had packed the oven tight and turned it on, like they were trying to make it look like the fire had started by accident. But no one who knows ovens would believe that. That's not how electrical fires work. It was staged. That's what one firefighter said in an interview, off record, anonymous. This was intentional, and whoever did it knew exactly how to make it look untraceable. But that wasn't the part that made me stop breathing. The real twist came months later, when a Freedom of Information Act request forced the ATF to release their investigation notes. 5 pages were fully redacted. Not blank, not summary pages. Black lines from top to bottom. The reason listed at the bottom of each. Content withheld under Title 6C, Juvenile Witness Protection. Juvenile, meaning a child. Why would a report about a fire at Beyonce's private home involve the protection of a minor? The media never followed up. A few blogs speculated, but no one serious touched it. It was like they didn't want to know more. Like asking the wrong question meant never getting called for another press conference again. But someone else was talking. A retired ATF agent, I won't say his name because he didn't want it published, spoke on a conspiracy podcast a year after the fire. He didn't say much. Most of what he shared was vague. But there was one detail that stuck with me. When the host asked if they'd found any strange prints or markings in the house, the agent paused. You could hear his voice catch. Then he said, "There were tiny handprints in the soot, back staircase, real small, lower than the railing, like knee height." No one followed up on it. The host moved on to a different question, and the clip vanished into the void of internet rumors. But I heard it, and I couldn't let it go. Because what was a child doing inside that house? And why did they try to erase all evidence that the child had ever been there? I started looking deeper into the property itself. Before Beyonce owned it, the house had belonged to a New Orleans sculptor who turned it into a private studio space. It was originally built in the 1920s, remodeled in the 60s, and then heavily reinforced in the 2000s. One of the most unique features? A full wine cellar built under the main dining room. Sealed off by the time Beyonce bought it. Most people thought the cellar had been converted into a storage space, but an old city property record described it differently. It wasn't just a cellar. It had a secondary exit, now bricked up, that aimed straight toward the street. Specifically toward the old New Orleans streetcar tunnel that was laid down in 1893 and decommissioned in the 1987. That tunnel still exists, by the way. The city calls it dormant, but engineers have been warning for years that sections of it are still accessible from private land, supposedly sealed. But we all know how that goes. So here's what we know. Beyonce's company purchases a historic house with a sealed underground cellar. That cellar was once linked to a public transit tunnel, now unused. A fire erupts, staged with accelerants and strange oven packing. A federal report about the fire gets censored, heavily under juvenile witness laws, and an investigator mentions finding child-sized handprints in the soot. There's no record of any children living in that house, no legal foster care history, no visiting family. So who was down there? And more importantly, how did they get in? I started mapping it out. From New Orleans to Los Angeles, from Harmony Street to North Bel Air Road. Obviously, there's no literal tunnel connecting the two. That's not what I mean. But symbolically, the pattern started to look familiar. Sealed spaces, underground corridors, children turning up in places they were never supposed to be, adults pretending nothing happened, authorities refusing to explain. The more I looked, the more it felt like the fire wasn't the end of something. It was the start. I found a local journalist who'd been covering the fire when it happened. She had written one article on the blaze and then dropped the story. I emailed her, told her I was looking into the public records and had some questions. She agreed to talk, but not in writing. She said it was safer to call. So I called her. She sounded tired, that she wasn't allowed to say much. But then she said this. They were scared. I mean, the city council, the zoning people, the inspection teams, everyone. Nobody wanted to be quoted. No one wanted their names in the story. I had a guy from permits tell me the whole property was red flagged months before the fire. Code violations everywhere. But the enforcement order got pulled, quietly, never enforced. She paused. Someone pulled the plug, someone big. I asked her if she believed the rumors. About the child, about the tunnel, about what really started the fire. She didn't answer. Not directly. But she said, whatever was happening in that house, they wanted it burned. All of it. But they missed something. Then she hung up. I kept turning that over in my mind. They wanted it burned. But they missed something. And that's when I came across one last piece. A small technical note buried in a scientific report about burn sites. I was researching how fire debris is handled in federal investigations, and I learned that sometimes, when fires happen in specific soil environments, especially ones with unique mineral content, the ash can carry traces of surrounding geology. So if something burns in Louisiana soil, it should only contain local sediment signatures, unless the materials came from somewhere else. There's a test for that. And according to one environmental forensics report, never released publicly but mentioned in a footnote on an insurance claim, the ash from the Harmony Street fire contained trace elements of California clay, specifically hillside clay found in regions like Beverly Hills and Bel Air. How does soil from Bel Air end up in the basement of a New Orleans mansion? Unless something or someone brought it there. They thought the flames erased everything. But the ash remembered. Chapter 4. The drummer who warned us. Before any tunnels, before the fire, before the leaked body cam clip hit the internet, there was Kimberly Thompson. She didn't trend for long. Just a few hours, really. The news picked it up in short bursts, laughed it off, and moved on. But I remember when it happened. Back in 2018. I was working late and watching clips on YouTube when her face popped up in a sidebar thumbnail. Black backdrop, tight camera angle, eyes a little too wide. The headline read, Beyonce's ex-drummer files for restraining order, claims witchcraft, spellcasting, and ritual abuse. I remember clicking on it out of curiosity. It sounded absurd, but I couldn't stop watching. Kimberly Thompson wasn't just anyone. She'd been Beyonce's drummer for over 7 years, toured with her, rehearsed with her, recorded with her. She was in the inner circle. The kind of person who doesn't just see the surface of celebrity, but lives inside. And then she filed a legal petition in Los Angeles Superior Court, asking for a restraining order against Beyonce Knowles Carter. The details were hard to wrap your head around. She accused Beyonce of practicing extreme witchcraft, said she'd been under spiritual surveillance, claimed her phone calls were monitored by dark energy, her finances blocked by remote means, and then it got darker. She accused Beyonce of casting sexual spells on her, of sending demons to sleep beside her, of conjuring spirits that scratched her arms at night. She said her dreams were hijacked, her thoughts rearranged, her body used, and most disturbing of all, she said Beyonce killed her kitten. It sounded like a tabloid joke, like something pulled straight from a Halloween special. But this wasn't a tweet. This wasn't a blog post. It was a sworn legal affidavit, filed in a real courtroom, with her signature at the bottom. I found the original PDF, scanned pages, smudged ink, her handwriting in the margins. She wrote about ritual marks showing up on her skin, about waking up with blood in her mouth and no memory of biting her tongue. She said it happened in the studio, in the lower room, a place beneath the main floor, below the vocal chamber. It didn't mean anything to me back then, but now it feels like the first crack in the wall. The kitten details stuck with me. She didn't just say, Beyonce killed it. She described it. Said it was part of a blood rite, something that was meant to silence her. She found the kitten dead outside her apartment, its neck broken, no sign of struggle, no blood trail, just gone. She was dismissed, of course. The judge denied the restraining order. The media pounced on it like a circus act. Late-night hosts made jokes. Twitter dragged her. Most people forgot her name within a week. But she kept saying it. She did interviews, posted YouTube videos, talked to anyone who would listen. In one clip, her voice cracked. She said, "They don't care because they can't see the basement, but the music doesn't come from upstairs. It comes from the dirt. It comes from the dark." People thought she was unwell, said she was paranoid, delusional. Even her closest friends started backing away. But I went looking for more. What I found made me shiver. There were versions of the affidavit floating around in small forums, blogs, download links, screenshots. Some of them looked incomplete, like pages were missing, but a few had something I hadn't seen in the court version. A paragraph, handwritten, half-scanned, barely legible. It said, "I heard them. Down there. Children singing. Always the same pitch, like a choir with no melody. Just that sound. They never spoke words, just hums, over and over." I remember that time they sang. There was no context, no explanation, just that. Children. In the studio. Humming. And suddenly everything started clicking together. The tunnels. The elevator that doesn't stop. The corridor that looks like a school hallway. The fire. The child-sized handprints. The leaked body cam clip that caught a child darting past a slurry wall. Was Kimberly Thompson telling the truth? Was her kitten just the first sacrifice? I know how that sounds. I know how crazy it feels to even say it out loud. But if she was lying, why file it in court? Why put your name on it? Why tank your career and reputation and credibility, unless you believed what you were saying? I printed her full affidavit, all 21 pages. Sat down at my kitchen table with a highlighter and a pencil. I read through each line, pausing when she got to the part about the lower room. She described it like it was a place she wasn't supposed to go. Said it was always locked. Said Beyonce had keys. Only her. No one else could access it. She said she once followed the sound of voices. "Kids," she said, laughing and humming. When she opened the side door near the equipment closet, she saw the metal staircase that spiraled down. She didn't go all the way. She just stood at the top and listened. And she wrote, in messy cursive. The voices stopped when I breathed. That line has haunted me ever since. Later that night, I played some of Beyonce's old rehearsal footage. Not the big performances, the behind-the-scenes stuff. Low-res, shaky cam, someone's phone on a tripod. In one of them, Kimberly was there, head down, drumming like a machine. You could see the sweat on her arms, the focus in her eyes. Then, in the background, you hear something, just faint. But not from the band, not from Beyonce. It's deeper, slower, not part of the song. Maybe it was feedback, maybe it was audio distortion. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. I slowed the video down, amplified the waveform, ran it through free software to isolate the background noise. The hum stayed the same, even when the music shifted, even when the talking stopped. Constant, like something coming from beneath the mic, beneath the floor. I kept hearing Kimberly's voice in my head. Maybe they don't care because they can't see the basement. I remembered that phrase, basement. When I started looking up occult history in music, I found cases going back decades. Old musicians who believed they could channel energy through sound chambers. Singers who built studio spaces with inverted acoustics, designed not to record sound but to hold it. A cult expert I emailed told me that some modern rituals use children's voices to anchor frequencies. She said that in older practices, children were considered clear channels. that their hums, especially in groups, could create a kind of resonance field, an invisible pulse. He called it vibrational shaping, and it sounded exactly like what Kimberly had described. I tried to find her, Kimberly, I mean. She hasn't posted in months. Her old interviews are mostly gone. Her YouTube channel's been wiped. Even her LinkedIn is blank. One of the blogs I found said she left the country, that she started using a new name. But that's just rumor. The truth is, I don't know where she is. All I know is this. 5 years ago, a woman risked everything to say Beyonce wasn't what she seemed. She talked about chanting, about humming, about a space below the music, below the fame, below the mansion. And 5 years later, children exactly that age turned up in a tunnel. Chapter 5, Diddy's shadow at the end of the corridor. Never used to follow anything about Diddy. Not the music, not the parties, not even the scandals. But that changed in early 2025 when the trafficking case started blowing up. Suddenly, it wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a flood. Court documents, names, locations, connections, and more than anything, question. At first, the lawsuits were focused just on Diddy himself. A Florida plaintiff came forward with details that were too graphic to even summarize on most news channels. But the part that made my skin crawl was buried in one of the early filings. About a specific party. They called it a freak-off, one of those nights where guests allegedly signed NDAs before stepping into themed rooms, some of which were reportedly underground. The filing mentioned that Beyonce and Jay-Z were believed to have been in attendance that night. It was a throwaway line, only there to suggest they might have knowledge of the environment or participants, nothing direct, nothing accusatory. Their names were removed within days. Lawyers came forward with alibi evidence, private jet logs, a time-stamped video showing the couple in Paris at the time of the alleged party. The timeline didn't match. But something about it still felt off. As the party itself didn't happen in Florida, it happened in California, Holmby Hills, one of Diddy's private residences. And here's where it gets stranger. 3 weeks after that party allegedly happened, Beyonce's company closed on a cliffside property in Malibu, valued at around $200 million, a house designed by architect Tarao Ando, known for his minimalist aesthetic and obsession with underground structures. Rumors swirled almost instantly that the Malibu estate had no interior stairs, that the entire bottom level was windowless, that part of it extended directly into the cliff face, with no architectural record of what was inside. I tried to shake the connection. Maybe it was all just coincidence. 2 insanely rich celebrities buying houses, no big deal. But then the telegram leak surfaced. It was a screen recording from someone who called themselves a former party runner, no real name, just a telegram handle and a clipped voice memo. In the post, they claimed that Beyonce was not just at the party, she was inside the main house, not the tent, not the pool area, the house. And they said something else, something that made my blood go cold. She wasn't talking, she was listening. Kids lined the tunnel wall. Just standing there. The voice was robotic, like it had been filtered through multiple layers of distortion. But it wasn't what the voice sounded like that mattered. It was what they said. Kids. Tunnel wall. That wasn't part of the public court filing. That wasn't something reporters were discussing. That was something different, something specific. I went back to the timeline. If that party happened in Holmby Hills, and if Beyonce really bought that Malibu cliff estate less than a month later, what was the connection? So I started mapping them. Diddy's house in Holmby Hills is about 10 miles from Beyonce's Bel Air compound. Add another 25 to reach Malibu. On the surface, it looks like nothing. Just real estate along the Los Angeles spine. But Los Angeles has layers. Old storm drains, some from the early 1900s, run beneath these neighborhoods like veins. They're built to handle flash floods, but can easily be mistaken or repurposed as private tunnels. I found old municipal maps from the Department of Public Works, hand-drawn, scanned pages showing the underground flow systems across Holmby Hills, Bel Air, and parts of the Santa Monica Mountains. There's a connection point less than 2 blocks from both properties. And suddenly, the party didn't feel so isolated anymore. It felt like a circuit. Online, TikTok went wild with the tunnel theory. People started comparing drone footage of Diddy's mansion to Beyonce's compound, circling similar vents, labeling identical rooftop structures. One video broke down how Diddy had reportedly soundproofed his underground garage in 2019. Another claimed Beyonce's Bel Air property had reinforced egress doors disguised as gardening sheds. Some of those videos were probably fake. Some were clearly reaching, but some of them, they made me pause. Especially the ones showing grainy stills of black SUVs pulling into private gates hours before any known party start time. No security detail, no lights, just slow, calculated entry, like no one was supposed to know they were there. I came across a post buried under a thread about RICO law where someone laid it out plainly. If these tunnels are real and if the properties are linked through old infrastructure, you could run anything through there. Guests, equipment, victims. That word, victims. It wasn't until I read that post that I remembered how the government actually caught up with Diddy in the first place. It wasn't from a tip. It was a pattern. They followed the money. They tracked repeated uses of shell companies, private security logs, subpoenaed texts. All of it pointed to a recurring issue: private parties, strange guests, multiple properties, underground transit. The legal term was conspiracy to commit sex trafficking across state lines. The public term? Organized depravity. I started noticing something else. Every time a new development came out in the Diddy case, Beyonce's name trended, just for a second, just enough to set off alarms. A subpoena here, a sealed witness list there. Every time, it disappeared just as quickly. Then The Guardian published a headline that said what nobody else would say. John Diddy Combs denied bail. Court cites risk of evidence tampering and witness intimidation. The article was straightforward, but the comment section wasn't. People were asking why certain names kept getting redacted, why some witnesses were being hidden, why the court wasn't revealing who had been at that house during the 2015 party. One phrase appeared again and again. Witness list sealed. I stared at those words like they were a door I couldn't open. Why seal list? Why protect identities unless the people named carried enough power to derail the whole case? I closed my laptop and pulled out the printed court filings I'd been saving. The early draft of the suit, the one where Beyonce and Jay-Z were named, was missing from the main docket, removed retroactively, scrubbed. But someone had saved it, a PDF posted by a watchdog group before the redaction took place. And in it, buried on page 12, was the sentence that wouldn't leave my head. The defendants are alleged to have participated in or observed the conduct described, directly or through shared infrastructure used to move participants between locations. Shared infrastructure. Shared. Like a tunnel. I pulled up my map again, plotted Diddy's house in Holmby Hills, Beyonce's in Bel Air, the storm drain junction point, then Malibu, perched out on the edge of the cliff. Imagined a pulse, a red dot moving from one house to the next. A corridor, a ritual, a delivery system. And I thought about the whisper from that telegram leak. She wasn't talking, she was listening. I thought about the child in the video, darting behind a wall hidden under tiled halls. I thought about Kimberly Thompson, about the kitten, about the blood, Then I closed my eyes. Then I asked myself the question I couldn't shake. If all these people are underground, who's still down there? Chapter 6. TikTok's tunnel manual politic. It started out like any other trend, a sound, a few blurry screenshots, a red circle drawn over a grainy satellite photo. At first it was just a few clips buried in the For You feed, then it wasn't. The hashtag was simple, tunnel found, and within a week it was everywhere. You couldn't scroll TikTok without seeing it. Videos zooming into Google Earth screenshots of Beyonce's property, eyes darting to the corners, fingers pointing at roof grates, dark shapes between hedges, or little boxy concrete panels that looked maybe like they covered something below. Most of the videos followed the same rhythm: zoom in, freeze frame, then the slow red circle. Some used filters to isolate shadows. Others tried to adjust contrast to show depth. One even claimed to use LiDAR data to prove there were hidden stairways beneath the Bel Air estate. The captions were all variations of the same thing. Well, are there 6 vents on one roof? Kids were heard screaming here, watch to the end. Zoom in on the west corner. Tell me that's not an access hatch. People started layering audio under the videos. Low, ambient loops. Some claimed the original satellite clips had childlike laughter embedded in the background. You couldn't really hear it unless someone pointed it out, and even then it sounded like wind. Or maybe it didn't. It depended on what you already believed. One video that went viral had over 8 million views in a single day. It was just a loop of the same 10-second drone shot from 2023, taken above Beyonce's Malibu estate. A slow overhead pass, nothing obviously wrong, but the poster had isolated a moment where the tiles near the edge of the property seemed to shudder. The comments were even stranger than the video itself. Feeling deprivation hurts, but it's where the air comes up. My cousin works in HVAC. That's not a legal vent. You can hear a child say help at 007. Whether you believed it or not didn't matter. The algorithm couldn't tell the difference. It just knew what people were watching, and it rewarded engagement, not truth. That's when Ali Carter entered the picture. If you haven't heard her name yet, you will. She first appeared in a viral YouTube clip, filmed in what looked like a cheap hotel room, shaky camera, one lamp lit, her face shadowed. She introduced herself as a survivor of the entertainment tunnel system, claimed she had been smuggled in and out of houses through underground passages, said she was part of a group of children who had been used, hidden, then erased. She didn't mention Beyonce directly at first, but then she did. We were told never to look up, she said. The music would start when she entered. We had to hum. The way she said it. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't even dramatic. She just recited it like a memory, like she had repeated it in her head so many times it stopped meaning anything. Her clip exploded. Millions of views overnight. Every TikTok conspiracy channel reposted it, stitched it, dissected it. Some believed her immediately, others called it bait, but no one ignored it, and that's when the pushback began. Mainstream outlets stepped in. PolitiFact was one of the first. Their article was titled, "No, Beyonce is not running a child trafficking operation through secret tunnels." They called the claims frivolous, deeply unserious, and insulting to real survivors. They pointed out the lack of hard evidence, the unverified sources, the social media hysteria. They labeled Ali Carter a fabricator, said there was no credible link between her and any legal case. Other outlets followed. Snopes, Reuters, even Rolling Stone ran a piece called The TikTok Tunnel Trap, warning that algorithms were fueling a new wave of conspiracy-driven fiction disguised as fact. And yet, the views kept climbing. I watched it happen in real time. The tunnel found hashtag kept multiplying. First 100,000 views, then 500,000, then 2 million. By the end of the second week, it had passed 25 million views. And PolitiFact's article, it had 10,000. The math didn't lie. Every video that showed a red circle got boosted. Every video that said debunked got buried. Even I fell into it. I'd scroll for hours, just trying to see what was new. One creator stitched Beyonce's concert footage with cut-in drone scans of her property, claiming that the stage itself was a symbolic opening to the underground, that her tour's lighting design mirrored spiritual gatework from ancient rituals. Someone else took Ali Carter's voice and ran it through pitch software, comparing her tone to the audio glitches in Beyonce's Renaissance tour interludes. Same frequency, they said, same hum. It didn't matter if it was true. It mattered that it made people stop. Creators started posting their TikTok revenue from tunnel videos. Screenshots showed ad payouts doubling, tripling. One woman claimed her follower count jumped from 10,000 to 500,000 in 3 days just by posting re-edits of tunnel theories with spooky music and captions like, "They're still down there." The content was outpacing the corrections. I remember seeing a split-screen video that made me stop cold. On the left, TikTok creators were zooming in on Beyonce's house, circling drain pipes and tagging them as human exhaust shafts. On the right, a calm PolitiFact journalist explained why the story wasn't real, how the photos were misinterpreted, how no evidence had ever linked Beyonce to trafficking or tunnels. But no one was watching the right side. The comment section said it all. "She's paid to say this." That's exactly what they want us to believe. Why does she look nervous? Even truth sounds like a lie when you're outnumbered. A digital culture professor from Stanford gave a quote in one of the articles trying to explain what was happening. He said, "Algorithms reward novelty and fear. Once a story becomes sensational enough, it evolves into a self-sustaining fiction. It doesn't have to be real, it just has to be engaging." And the tunnel theory? It was more than engaging. It was addictive. You couldn't look away. Every new clip promised just a little more. An angle you hadn't seen yet. A whispered voice you hadn't caught the first time. A door hidden in plain sight. People started debating it in Twitter spaces. Reddit threads exploded. Telegram rooms multiplied. Some said the tunnels were just symbolism for the music industry's dark side. Others said no, they were real, physical, operational, and someone needed to go down there and see for themselves. But no one did. As just when it felt like the whole thing might burn out, the body cam footage leaked. The same clip from Bel Air I'd watched weeks before. It came back. And this time it wasn't just TikTok sleuths pushing it. It was journalists, real ones, asking how the footage even existed, asking why no department would confirm it, asking who the child in the frame was and what happened after that flash of light cut the video short. Everything the fact-checkers tried to shut down. The laughter, the tunnels, the maps, the screams. It came roaring back. Because once you show people what looks like proof, no article in the world can put that fire out. The louder the experts shouted, the more the tunnel hashtag grew, until the clip surfaced. And suddenly, no one was laughing anymore. Chapter 7. Blueprints, Blackmail, and the Portal on Stage. When the Renaissance World Tour launched, everyone said the same thing. It looked futuristic. High concept, almost alien. Beyonce stood on stage, inside a massive rotating ring that looked like it had been pulled from a science fiction movie. Like a Stargate, people said. Some joked it was a portal to another dimension. But that was before the rumors started. At first, it was just aesthetics. Fans talked about how the stage lighting created circles that followed her across the floor. How she always seemed to move in sync with some invisible loop. Then, a TikTok went viral. Someone slowed down the intro to one of her sets and noticed that the stage ring wasn't just rotating, it was vibrating. They used a visual stabilizer to analyze the movement frame by frame. What they found was a flicker, a pulsing at the base of the ring that didn't match the rest of the equipment, almost like a heartbeat. The caption said, "That's not choreography, that's resonance." It would have been easy to write off, if not for the email I got next. It was from a man who signed only as Steve. The subject line was one word, blueprints, no other context. Inside the email was a single sentence. "That is exactly the size of the freight elevator under Bel Air." Attached were 6 scanned PDFs, blurry, stamped with official seals, city permits, floor plans, technical schematics labeled audio deployment grid, and rotating stage chassis support. A cone support. I didn't know what I was looking at first, but then I saw the measurements. The circle from the tour stage, 40 feet in diameter, 12 feet in height, matched the platform size listed in the freight elevator documentation from Beyonce's 2017 Bel Air property acquisition. Perfectly. Same radius, same tolerances, same structural specs. Steve said he worked in the city's permit office, said he wasn't supposed to talk, but he kept a folder. In case the city buried the file, he wrote, "You need to see what they tried to hide." The final file in the zip was the one that stopped my breath. It was a floor plan, not labeled with any city code. It looked more like an internal diagram, color-coded, printed with custom software, something built for a private contractor. There were 6 levels. At the top, the residential layout, bedrooms, kitchens, a gym, then 2 floors of underground garages. That much had already been confirmed. Then it got strange. Below that was a level marked B4, then B5, then B6, and then, right at the bottom, boxed in red text, second child choica. The room was rectangular. No exits except one hallway leading back to the main shaft. Inside the box were notes. I couldn't read all of them. Some had been blacked out or pixelated. But one said sound isolation and another said 0.8 second harmonic loop. The words didn't make sense until I remembered Kimberly Thompson. She said Beyonce could embed her voice in technology, that her voice wasn't just music, it was a spell, a frequency, that the humming came from below. I pulled up one of the TikToks I'd saved earlier that week. It was of a teenager sitting in her room, watching a slowed-down version of Beyonce's stage performance. She's just staring at the screen, silent. Then, without realizing it, she starts humming along. Not the lyrics, not the melody, just this low, steady drone. It allows messaging between people to stay calm, for reassurance, and for understanding. The camera zooms in. She's not aware she's doing it. In the comments, dozens of people said the same thing happened to them. I watched this at 2 a.m. and caught myself humming in the kitchen. My daughter did this in her sleep after I played the audio during dinner. No joke, I can't stop. It's like it's in my chest. I don't know what kind of tech is needed to make that happen. But if it's real, then what's the point of a room labeled child choir in an underground structure? I opened the 3D mapping program again, laid Steve's blueprint over the architectural footprint of the Bel Air property. Then I layered it with the satellite imagery from 2 months ago, the one showing strange vent shafts 30 meters down slope. The B7 chamber lined up perfectly. It sat directly beneath the northwest section of the auto gallery, just out of reach of the publicly known levels. And the tunnel from that room? It pointed west, toward the pool, toward the place where I first saw that child's shadow dart past the wall in the body cam video. I imagined the elevator descending, past the listed levels, into the silence, doors opening not to a parking space or a storage room, but to a soundproofed box built for resonance. I imagined a child standing in the middle of that box, humming a single note. Alone. And then I looked at the handprint. It came from Chapter 1, the body cam footage. A brief flash during the last few seconds when one of the marshals shouts, "Back up, that's electric!" The video jitters, and for one frame, the flashlight catches a surface. A child's handprint, smudged on white tile. And I paused the video, froze the frame, and enhanced the contrast. I could see it clearly. 5 fingers spread wide. Small, just like the ATF agent said back in New Orleans. Just like the soot prints they found near the back staircase. And now, Steve's blueprint. In the bottom right corner, barely noticeable, was a scanned version of the same print, like someone had photocopied the tile itself and laid it over the floor plan. That handprint was labeled Specimen H, frequency match 14.2 Hertz. Do not delete. It wasn't fake, it wasn't speculation. It was filed, stored, preserved. The blueprint glitched as I scrolled. My screen froze. For a second, everything went red. And in the silence, I heard it again. The hum. Maybe from my laptop speakers, maybe from the back of my head. But it was there, resonating, waiting. Chapter 8. Summoned. The file wasn't supposed to exist. That's what the lawyer told me. FOIA requests don't always get answered, and when they do, they're usually so redacted they don't even make sense. But this one slipped through. It was an internal memo, labeled only with the case number and a single title. Recovered subjects, Belair Containment Operation. The date matched the night of the body cam video, and right there in black and white, no redactions this time, it said, 12 juveniles retrieved from subterranean holding chambers beneath Parcel 113B, private residence North Bel Air Road. Minors escorted off-site via DHS secure transport. All interviews sealed under protective status. Victim statements filed under Minor Classification Codes MCC per Title VI Juvenile Protective Act. No names, no photos, no explanations. Just that, well, I remember staring at that line for what felt like hours. 12 kids. No press conference, no breaking news banner. No footage of reunions, no hashtags calling for justice. Just a buried memo from a federal agency, hidden in plain sight. Sitting inside a folder someone forgot to lock down. And then came the lab notes. These were harder to find, posted by someone calling themselves a contractor for a federal assessment team. No credentials, no proof, just 3 photos. Blurred, grayscale, clearly taken in a hurry, and one set of typed text, labeled Environmental Anomaly Report, Sublevel B7. One line in that report still hasn't left me. Multiple concentric chalk sigils found etched into floor surface, approximate 8 feet in diameter, pattern consistent with sound resonant geometry, amplified speaker array mounted in ceiling rafters. They weren't just storing kids down there. They were using them. Where did? I don't know for what. I don't even want to guess. But if those diagrams are real, and if that hum really did come from that room, then Kimberly Thompson was right. The music didn't come from above, it came from the dirt. From underneath. And the worst part? No one talked about it. I checked every major news outlet. Fox gave it a 12-second segment. NBC ran a one-liner during a 4 a.m. broadcast. ABC buried it in a federal coordination drill article with no mention of victims. All of them used the same phrase. No threat to public safety. No follow-up, no questions, just silence. But on TikTok, the opposite. There was a 3-hour live stream that broke down every inch of those sigils. Someone had enhanced the leaked floor photo, traced the chalk outlines, and overlaid them on ancient religious glyphs. Babylonian gate symbols, some said. One creator said it looked like a calling circle. Another said it was a harmonic cage, something used to trap frequency. They kept playing the hum, looping it, slowing it down, isolating it. One girl posted that she left her phone on her nightstand overnight, still playing the looped hum on low volume. The next morning, her Alexa had added Beyonce radio to her favorites. She said she never asked it to. Another claimed their Spotify Wrapped showed a hidden track called Track Zero. No artist, just silence. And the runtime matched exactly the length of the leaked body cam clip, 39 seconds. Coincidence? But then came the part that made everything shift. A private audio forensics account. Again, no credentials, just a name, Spectra Trace, uploaded a video comparing the waveform from the distorted end of the body cam footage with a live mic sample from Beyonce's 2023 Houston performance. The shapes matched. Not the content, the shape. Same waveform profile, same dips, same rise, same trailing hum. That's not something you can fake, not easily. Not without deep analysis and real tech. Which means either someone engineered a fake distortion to look like Beyonce's mic, or her voice was down there, embedded, residual, maybe even live. That's when the last piece fell into place. A leak, unverified but heavily reposted, showed a charter flight manifest for a private security firm brought in days after the tunnel raid. The lead officer was registered under the name A. Knowles. No one could find a record of that person existing in the firm's history before or after that flight. Some claimed it was a fake name. Others said it was her legal team moving in quietly. But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. Celebrities started distancing themselves, unfollowing quietly, removing tagged photos. Tour partners changed names. One brand canceled an ad buy and claimed creative differences, but no one said why. They didn't have to, because once the story got loose, it didn't need help staying alive. And now, we're here, at the last layer. I want to play you something. It's a 3-second loop from the end of that body cam video, just before the screen cuts to black. There's no video anymore, just static. But listen closely. First, it's just distortion, feedback, the kind of glitch that happens when a mic hits power. Then there's a hum, faint, barely there, and then it fades into something else. Something layered. It's the sound of children, humming in unison. So now, I want to ask you something. Is that just rescue team radios? Is that just electrical feedback? Or is it proof that the tunnel wasn't empty after all? Let me know what you hear.